welcome or welcome back to my channel and to today's video, which is a very late July and August reading journal look through and a reading wrap up. I only read 2 books in those months, so I have kind of pushed back on doing this video because I didn't necessarily have a ton to say, but I do want my reading journal to be complete, so I've just finished those spreads as much as I can, and I thought I would just go ahead and upload this so that it's out there in the internet, and then I can move on to months that were not quite so far in the past. So in case this is the first of these videos you're watching, may I recommend you don't start with this one. Please go and watch my setup video or one of the previous months. That would maybe be a better place to start. But for those of you that are hardcore fans, thanks for sticking with me with this. So my reading journal is an 8x8 Archer and Olive dot grid journal. I love it. As I say, I do have the setup video on the channel, so go and check that out. What I usually do with these videos, look through the beginning pages just to see where I've made any changes to things, and then we go to the actual monthly spread so that you can see those as well. Given that I only read 2 books, I'm not sure how many changes there will be to make here, but let's have a look anyway. So we've got no changes to these pages because the books I read were not part of my anticipated reads. I do have the 2 books added here into the bookshelf star rating tracker, and I actually didn't rate either of these books, so that will make for interesting topic of conversation, I guess. Because I only read 1 book each month, they both took the favourite reads space, so kudos to them. They were not part of my 25 books in 2025, and were not one of my 12 recommendations from 12 friends. They were not book box books. One of them was an arc though, so that did get to fill out in this spread. And then I did put in girlfriend agreement for G, so that was great. This is my alphabet challenge. We love that we've achieved another letter there, but semi well adjusted didn't get added here because I already have an S. I don't know that I added it to this because I don't know that I know which state it's set in. I felt like I really knew this in 2024, but in 2025 I have struggled, and I don't think I added the book for anything here because I think all of the tropes were things I already have. Neither of them were part of series, so no updates there, and I think we'll just see semi well adjusted added here into my audiobook spread. I've also just realised it's so miserable today, so this video is also very dark, so I'm really sorry about that as well, just to add to the joys. Maybe I've turned on the lights and maybe that's helped slightly. So for my July spread, it's such a shame I only read 1 book because this is like my favourite set of stickers that I have from Maragon Asuli. So Maragon Asuli is who draws these beautiful witches. All of my witchy stickers are from her, and this colour scheme is my favourite. I used it as my main colour scheme in my 2024 journal, so I guess at least I have made good use of them, but it's sad that it didn't get a lot of love for July. These stickers are from Thumbelina Print, so I matched the witches to the themed stickers here for the month, and I felt this one worked pretty well because the pinks are relatively close in shade. This is also my birthday month, so sad I only read 1 book, but also I do really like that it's this, like, my favourite pink and brown set managed to be used for July. I do have here on the right hand side a calendar which shows how long it took me to read the books. For a romance, this was really long. So that maybe gives you a bit of an indication of why everything fell apart a little bit in July and August. And then I do also track my YouTube and Instagram stats down here. I haven't been posting that much really. I mean, Instagram I do post on, but growth is so slow on there. But YouTube I do post, but I haven't been posting that much in the last few months, so it's not surprising that we don't really have much growth there. In terms of the actual spread for the book, so I've done a giant cover for the book to take up space, and I also found this post on the author's Instagram, so I decided to cut this out and then just covered it with some stickers. And then down here I have all the books that I was still reading, so I think this maybe also gives an insight into why I was struggling with reading, because I will only mark a book in my journal once it's finished. So if I have a book hanging over for 1.5 years, for example, I'm sure that's never happened, but for example, I won't mark it anywhere until I finish the book. So the fact that I was in the middle of so many books really gives some insight. I have since DNF'd Feather So Black. We'll talk about that in October. And I have also stopped Scandar because I only listened to like the first chapter maybe, so I've just decided to like pretend that never happened. But these 3 books have since been read and they will feature in my September video. On the right hand side I do have all of my stats, so these circle stickers are from Plannerface, IPR for Plannerface, so you can use my code CAT to save 10% on your orders and add my name and notes to seller to pick up a seasonal freebie. These stickers have just made my life so much easier, and I've actually run out, which is really annoying because I finally was like, yeah, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna get up to date with my reading journal, and I haven't got any of my circle stickers. And I could go back and stencil them all in, and I guess maybe I'll do that, but it's really annoying to have to stencil them all in when the stickers made my life so much easier. So I have gone and put in an order, but yeah, don't be like me, batch order your things that you need. But yeah, I do still think that this spread looks pretty cute. I mean, the stats are kind of pointless because when you've only got 1 book, it's like, I was really debating whether I should bother, but I do really like my stats spreads, so I've gone with it. The colouring is terrible. I hate the way that Tombo's and Marmliner's colour in, so it doesn't look great, but it'll do. And then for August we have this stunning set. So this backing paper is from Plannerface. I just realized I didn't talk about this one. This one is one that my friend Emma gave me. But yeah, this backing paper is from Plannerface. It's from last year's Advent, I'm pretty sure. Obviously the Witches from Aragon Asuli and the August from Thumbelina print. I love, love, love. Yellow and green is like one of my favourite colour combos. It was like a colour combo in our wedding. Like, I just love it so much. And again, I'm so gutted that a colour scheme I love so much didn't get a lot of love in my journal. And in fact, that happened in 2024 as well, that I used this colour scheme in June and I only read 2 books in June. So I don't know, there's maybe some psychology going on here. But yeah, so the only book that I read was Semi Well Adjusted Despite Literally Everything, which is Alison Stoner's biography. And so I was reading that towards the end of August. And obviously we've got a very blank calendar otherwise. This is a very busy work time for me and things like that. So I think it shows. And in terms of my stats, we had, again, very small growth, but I wasn't posting, so fair enough. I've got the same list of books up at the top because I was still reading these all the way through August. And then I did print off my review. It fit quite nicely in there, so I thought I would just kind of throw it in. I've again got the giant book cover, and then I've also just picked a random picture off Google, which is Alison Stoner, but also when they were a child as well, because I thought that this really fitted in with the book. And then on the right hand side, we have the various stats, you know, for only 1 book again. And this is where I ran out of circles, so I will go back and add that. But for format, what do I normally say for format? I feel like these words don't always stay in my brain. Oh, like novel, graphic novel, etc. So this was a novel. So there you go. You're not missing out on too much. So let's talk about The Girlfriend Agreement by Rowan Croft. So I got a copy of this book directly from the author. I actually got it as a sponsored ad through Instagram, and I'd got it a few times, and the cover is really cute. So I thought, okay, I will go ahead and request it, and was very lucky to get requested it. So a big thank you to the author. This is a romance. It's a new adult romance. It's set in a university. So again, that was a reason why I requested it, because I really like books that are set at universities. I'll give you a brief overview of the plot and then let's talk about what I thought. I will be looking down at my laptop to help me with this. I'm not having the best mental health day, so please forgive me for needing some notes to help me with this, just so that we can get through this review more coherently than allowing me to go all over the place. So we have Damien and Lexi. They are very opposite personalities. Lexi is a scholarship student at the university and everyone else there is very wealthy. She works really, really hard. Damien is just kind of there because of his parents' money, and he just doesn't care really about life at all, actually. He's not interested in his family. He doesn't have a good relationship with them. He's not interested in friends. He's not interested in women. He'll sleep around, and he's being sort of encouraged to sleep around by a guy who is not really a friend, who sort of has set him this like competition to sleep around with different women that meet different categories and who never sleep with them again. We literally open the book in the middle of a sex scene, and the following day they realise that actually they've slept together before, and it comes out that Damien has only slept with Lexi because of this competition. She's obviously fuming. She kicks him where the sun don't shine, and that they think that's going to be the end of it. But Lexi's mum is diagnosed with cancer, and healthcare treatment in the US is very, very expensive. And so Lexi decides that she really needs to find a way to make money. Her friends, who are also like kids of billionaires, do offer to give her money, but she doesn't accept that. And that is a plot point that I think is slightly problematic. I understand why you wouldn't take money from friends, but they
really have extra money to spare. And I think it makes more sense than what she ends up doing, which is that she sees an ad on Craigslist to be somebody's fake girlfriend over the course of a number of months, and she decides to sign up and do it. And it turns out that the fake boyfriend that she'll have is Damien, who's had a big falling out with his parents, who say that his sort of carefree lifestyle is not going to fit with him taking over the family business. And so he needs to prove he's serious. And so he decides to get a girlfriend. It's a really, really like typical fake dating scenario. But the prize for Lexi is $15,000. So it's obviously life-changing money. In fact, that's $15,000 a month. So it's life-changing money. So she decides to fake date Damien. I think my feelings about this, and I said this in my review, my feelings about this book are very complicated because on paper, this is everything I love. We've got a fake date, which I love, and it's a fake date that, while slightly far-fetched, does have a reason for doing it, so I do like that. And it makes a lot of quite serious statements about the American healthcare system and how that's failed a lot of people, and actually Damien's family work in medication. So there's a really interesting plot point there. It also has, to my experience of anxiety, one of the most accurate portrayals of what anxiety looks like. And I really, really appreciated that. But there is a lot that I am uncomfortable with. So really that in the main boils down to Damien. If you've been around my channel before, you'll know that I'm not a fan of a male main character who is unlikable. And I understand we are meant to have a redeeming arc for these kind of men, and I can get on board with that, but I don't really feel Damien's arc is quite what I would be looking for. And in my opinion, Damien is too irredeemable to start with. Damien refers to his dad. I don't know whether this person's name would get demonetized on YouTube, and I don't make enough money for it to necessarily matter. I don't really want to upset anybody. But Damien calls his dad a German dictator's name. And I think that that is completely uncalled for. I just, like, yeah, he doesn't like his dad. They don't get on. I don't think that you can really refer to your dad, given that his dad just hasn't really done enough to justify this, by this particular person's name. I think it's, to be honest, it's really flippant from the author to use that name in that way. And I just felt really, really uncomfortable with that. I was just surprised that that had made it through to the final draft. So that was my first issue. At the end of the day, Damien is just not likable, and it takes well over 50% before he starts his redemption arc. So you have to spend a lot of the book with somebody who is just horrible. And I found that really difficult. I just was like, there's nothing about him that I like. He's really immature. The way he talks about women is actually unacceptable. I really, really don't like that. Whereas I feel like in other books, like Real Life Cat has just finished Mate by Ali Hazelwood. And Cohen is a really grumpy character. He can be really harsh and brash, but he treats women with respect. He treats all his family and friends with respect. He just needs to sort of come around to being with a woman, right? That I can deal with. Grumpy men, fine. This is not that. It's not like Grumpy Sunshine. It's just a really, really horrible person. I really struggled with that. However, when we got there, it was so satisfying. He becomes the ideal book boyfriend. I've written that I cried so much at him working through the issues with his family. There wasn't really a third act breakup. There was a little bit of drama, but it was handled really well. So, you know, in that sense, the author like really had me at the end. I'm in a way very surprised I didn't DNF before then. And I think there is potential I should have DNF'd before then based on how long this book took me to read. But anyway, I then, because of all of this, decided not to rate the book. I've really struggled with rating this year. I've not had a single 5-star still, and Real Life Cat's filming this on the 10th of November. I've still not had a 5-star, and I think in part that's because of what I've just got really in my head about what ratings mean and what's the difference between a 5-star and a 4-star and all this sort of thing. And I just was like, I don't know how to rate this book, because I think I'd probably rate the first part of this book a 1-star, but the second half a 4-star. So I just decided not to rate it. I also, because I was an ARC reader, the way that ARC reviews can impact authors' success. And at the end of the day, this book is not for me, right? I thought it was for me, and on paper it has everything I thought I would want. But there are many people that are happy to read a book about somebody who is as gross as Damien, who has his redemption arc. Because there are a lot of other books out there that have redemption arcs for male main characters like this. That is just not me. And I didn't want to put a rating against this book just because I didn't like that. I didn't like this book yes, it offended me, but I'm a bit sensitive, so I don't know, it's a difficult one. I've mentioned about the Twilight references being something that I'm not really sure that young people these days actually do love Twilight this much. It is a really emotional read. I think that Lexi's mum's cancer treatment, and I say this as a daughter of somebody who's had cancer, was handled really well. Was very, very sensitive. I've said I'm not 100% sold on the ending in this regard, but I'll leave it up to readers to make up their own mind. I also love the neurodivergent representation for Lexi. I also love that she's a curly girl like myself. So there was a lot to love in this book. It's just sadly there were also things I really didn't like. So take that what you will. I think there are many, many people who will love this book, and I really wish the author every success with that. Then we have my August read, which is semi-well adjusted despite literally everything, which is the biography memoir from Alison Stoner. So I am a Disney Channel child. I loved the Disney Channel growing up, massive fan of High School Musical, Cheetah Girls, etc. Definitely a Disney Channel kid. And this year, there's obviously, well, and last year, there's been a lot coming to light about how difficult it was for all of these people to grow up to be Disney stars and what that means. And we've got a lot of stuff coming out in the media and through memoirs. And I find all of them incredibly interesting. And I find them depressing because ultimately they are very difficult reads. These are things, you know, it's so difficult to hear what these people are going through when you're like, oh, but thank you for entertaining me so much when I was younger. So it's definitely been an introspective journey for me. I have got really like into these topics. I watch a lot of YouTube videos on this now. I've listened to other books since this one that are like on this topic. So it's definitely like my in thing I'm reading about. And Alison Stoner, I was really, really like looking forward, if you can say that, to this book, because I've really enjoyed Alison Stoner's performances in the past, but I knew that it would be a very, very honest book and very similar to Jeanette McCurdy's book, which I also really enjoyed. I felt that this was going to be a really interesting read, and it definitely was. It's another heartbreaking account of celebrity stardom. Alison's been through a real journey. There's a lot of trigger warnings in this for like eating disorders, for abuse. It is very, very difficult book at times. Alison, who narrates the book themselves, is a very emotive audiobook narrator. And that made for a really, really harrowing and borderline uncomfortable experience at times in a way that Jeanette's didn't quite make me feel. But this one I was like, okay, I'm feeling like kind of like actually like sick listening to this, which is the point. So we can give kudos to Alison for their acting prowess there. It doesn't really talk that much about the specific projects that Alison was involved in. So if you were planning to read this because you wanted a load of gossip about Camp Rock or Cheaper by the Dozen, etc., you're not really going to get that. There is some reference to that, but it's not a focus. And I think I always find this a really interesting thing about biographies and memoirs. I thought it about The Third Gilmore Girl by Kelly Bishop, that actually the thing that they're known for is not necessarily the thing that they want to spend the majority of their book talking about, but is the thing that makes you as a reader who knows them want to buy the book. So it's a really interesting thing. I felt it was a really deliberate choice from Alison, and actually they focus a lot on their other struggles, and I don't think that they reveal anything in there about like experiences on Camp Rock, etc., that you can't find out by watching the YouTube channel Deep Dive, where there's a lot of talk about like when Demi Lovato punched somebody during the Camp Rock tour and things like that. These are all things that you can find out online. What you really are reading this for is Alison's personal experience, so just important to know that going in. I actually think this book will help a lot of people. Alison is on a real like therapy, mental health, psychology journey, and clearly works within that space now. And so I think that there's a lot of people, if you are in a space that you want to be helped, you could get help from this book. And Alison has a lot of recommendations for places to get help, especially if you're in the US. So I think that there's a lot to help with that book. I will say, I think that that part does borderline on preachy. Alison has had experiences with religion, and I'm not a religious person, and whilst I don't like to tarnish that with a brush, it does show a little bit in the way that some of that comes out, as somebody who is like an atheist who consumes some religious content. But I don't think in a way that was uncomfortable. Like, I didn't find it uncomfortable, I'm just noting it. But yeah, I again didn't rate this book because I don't rate the majority of biography and memoirs. I rated Jeanette McCurdy's 5 stars, but I think that was because it was the first of this kind of book that I had like ever read, and it just kind of changed my brain chemistry a little bit. But a lot of other books since then have been similar, so it's like harder to rate them, I think. So I didn't rate this one, but I think that I would really recommend it, especially if you enjoyed, in the loosest sense of the term, Jeanette McCurdy's biography. Then I think that this is another good recommendation for you.
That's it for July and August. Thank you so much if you did watch this video. I really, really massively appreciate it. I will be back on form soon. I've been reading a bit more, you'll be pleased to hear. I think I've got 3 books for September and a few for October, maybe 3 again for October. So we're like working our way back up. And I've realised I'm at like 45 books read, so I think I'm probably still on track for maybe 50 by the end of the year, which is still a massive achievement. It honestly feels like I've read 10 books. I still haven't found a 5-star, but maybe that will happen in November. Maybe you'll have to stay subscribed to find out. And then I will also soon be posting my 2026 reading journal setup. I'm hoping that maybe just a new start is what I need right now. If you did enjoy this video, I would really appreciate a like, and if you haven't already, I would love it if you would subscribe. In the description, I'll have a link to the various things that I use in my reading journal, so you can check those out if you want to, and I'll also have a link to my Instagram and my Goodreads if you want to check out any more content from me when I'm reading. Otherwise, I'll see you in my next video. Bye!